Hey there, and welcome. I'm so glad you're here for today's case study for the Become Club Mindfulness and Meditation program. I've got a really special story to share that I know will resonate with so many of you. We talk about so much in this interview, from the toll being a high achiever can take on you to how mindfulness has helped my student Greer repair her attention span so she can focus better at work and spend her time and attention on the things that truly matter to her. If we haven't met before, my name is Amber. I'm the founder of a 7-week program called Become Club, which is designed to help you find calm and clarity using mindfulness and meditation. I've seen firsthand how these proven techniques can transform our internal experiences with stress and anxiety. And today I am so excited to bring you into my conversation with one of our amazing members, Greer. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by the demands of life and maybe wondered whether meditation could work for you, or you're looking for a way to stay grounded in stressful situations, like maybe a social situation where you don't quite know what to say, we've all been there. We get into all of that in today's interview. Greer joined the Become Club program having almost no formal experience with meditation, and now it's one of her go-to resources for handling stress and staying present. And I can't wait for you to hear all about it. Now, if you're watching and you can relate to Greer's story, I want to very warmly invite you to join our Become Club community. You can learn more at meditationwithamber.com/become club. All right, let's get into it. Hi, Greer. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I'm very excited to talk to you today. Would you please introduce yourself? Who are you and what do you do?
Yes. So, hello, I am Greer. I'm a 27-year-old originally from Georgetown, Guyana in South America. I'm currently living and working in Dubai as a content designer. And I also make videos about mindfulness, tech, productivity, and the millions of other interests that I have. So, yeah.
Awesome. Welcome. Maybe we could just start right at the beginning, like before you joined Become Club. Can you tell me a little bit about your mental health journey and what that has looked like? Like give us a little bit, maybe a background on you, and then maybe tell us like what was going through your mind that made you think that joining Become Club would be right for you.
Sure. So I would say that mental health is something that I have always sort of prioritized. I think that I'm a very self-aware person. I know that about myself, and I like to think that I have a good grasp of, my feelings, my emotions, and why I show up in the world the way that I do. I'm lucky to have a good support system of family and friends, which I think really helps me to feel grounded and cared for. But having said that, I think like a lot of people, I've struggled with things like stress, balancing responsibilities and um, a personal life. And I'm also I think I'm sort of a type A personality. So, I'm one of those people who like I think that I always have to get everything right and be perfect. And that's a mindset that can really take a toll on you. Your mind is always racing, you're always trying to keep up the pace. And so knowing that about myself, I started really trying to focus on ways that I could be more mindful, doing things like journaling, which is something that I have thankfully been able to sustain for years at this point, and even doing things like just taking time to disconnect from technology, and so but I knew that, having being able to do those things, I also wanted to build on that. And I've always been curious about meditation, but I think I just found it hard to stick to it as a consistent practice in the past. And so I think when I was introduced to Become Club, I thought, this is sort of the structured approach that could possibly help me to make this into a consistent habit.
Yeah. Awesome. I think a lot of people will be able to relate, including myself, to
Yeah,
the how stressful it can be to be someone who just naturally puts a lot of pressure on
yeah,
yourself.
right.
Um, but yeah, mindfulness can definitely help us with that. Can you tell me a little bit about what your meditation practice was like before you joined Become Club, if any?
Right. So I think before joining Become Club, my meditation practice was relatively non-existent. At least if we're talking about meditation in the traditional sense, where, you sit, you take your deep breaths, and you're intentional about it. Because one thing that we learned in the program is that there are activities that can be meditative. So it's not just about the traditional meditation, it's also about how you like incorporate it into the different activities in your day-to-day life, whether that's like washing the dishes or driving or just taking a walk. So in that sense, yes, I would say that meditation was part of my life, but not in the more traditional, like intentional, deliberate sense. And I did try apps like Headspace. I did a few sessions on the app, but like I said, it just never really stuck. And I think I was sort of overwhelmed by where to start, and how, what to do next. And so I definitely knew that I needed more guidance and support to turn that curiosity into a habit.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Um, and so when you did decide to join, was there maybe anything specific that you had in mind that you hope to learn or, experience through the program?
Yeah, so just building a bit on what I mentioned before about like dealing with stress and anxiety, I
Yeah.
knew that, coming into this, I wanted to be able to find ways to use mindfulness to manage that and just be more present in everyday life. And I was just curious about how meditation could help me feel more balanced overall. I think I'm a very calm person naturally. I think that that's my baseline. People often tell me, you have a very calming presence, and while that's nice to hear, and while it's true sometimes, oftentimes there's like more going on the inside that doesn't necessarily reflect to the outside world. And so I knew that my goal would be to build on that sort of mental toolkit that I had already started working on to be able to tap into that calm sense of being during stressful times. And then to be honest, when I met you and we, talked about, I learned more about you and your dedication to this program and how you came about, to start it. I knew without a doubt that I would be learning something and coming away with new knowledge and new understanding, right? So that was a given for me. But I think another thing that I wanted to accomplish was just coming into it with an open mind because I am the kind of person who like I tend to focus on outcomes a lot. So I think in the past it would have been, okay, what's going to be the end result of these 7 weeks? Whereas for this time around, I just wanted to be able to say, okay, I'm coming into this with an open mind and I'll take it as it comes and I'll just give it my all and we'll see what happens. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful approach.
Yeah.
Um, I want to kind of like zoom in a little bit on something that you said, which is that stress is something that we experience on the inside, and sometimes there are external physical manifestations. But
Yeah.
for a lot of us, like we are very good at kind of pulling ourselves together. We're mindful of our energy already, so we know how to avoid like letting any stress or anxiety that we may be experiencing, affect other people, which is a great skill. Like that is something that is very helpful in stressful situations and in the workplace. People really rely on people like us. Like I can relate to what you're saying.
Yeah.
But for the person who is experiencing it, that can be quite disorienting. I think when my anxiety was at its worst, I remember describing it like I feel like a duck, like on paddling in like a pond, and like on the
Yeah.
surface, like the water is smooth and like the duck is just swimming along. But like
Right,
underneath the surface, I was just like paddling, 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 and like afraid that there was like something in the water that would like come up and like grab me from below. And
right,
like,
right,
I think what m- learning to meditate and mindfulness does is like create like a true sense of peace and like groundedness for us on the inside. And
yeah,
so it may be that nothing much changes on in our day-to-day lives, or like it might not look very different, but it
right.
feels different.
Yeah,
Um,
for
at
sure.
least
And I think that that goes into like the whole idea of like perception and how you react
Mm.
to external factors, right? But yeah, I think we can definitely get more into that later.
Yeah. Can you also tell me a little bit about your experience of stress and anxiety? Like, how does that show up for you?
Yeah, so I think, my typically I think I take pride in the way that I react to like stressful situations. So I come in wanting to be calm and wanting to be able to share that with the people around me so that I have that like calming effect on people. But like I said, after a while, you start to ignore the effect that it's having on you, like even the
Mm.
physical effects, things like your heart racing or just not being able to think straight. And so I don't think that it's a sustainable way to go through life, just always wanting to be this calm, collected person. So um, I think one thing that this program has helped me with is realizing that it's not always about just ignoring the negative effects or ignoring when something is affecting you. It's really about facing those feelings, and acknowledging them and not judging them. I think that's a super important part of it too.
Yeah. Yeah. Were you experiencing any sort of adverse effects from, like, as you were saying, ignoring the negative effects of stress? Like, what
Yeah.
was happening? You were saying, like, I don't, maybe consciously or subconsciously, right? Like, I don't want to feel that, or this is not the time, or something. And then what would happen?
Yeah, so I definitely feel it. Like I would lose sleep over it. I would sometimes even get sick. Sometimes I think the way that we deal things mentally can also compromise our like immunity in the way we, handle illnesses as well. And so
Yeah.
I just knew that if I continued to deal with things that way, it would not bode well for me or or anyone else around me. And so yeah, I just feel like it's super important when you're going through, negative feelings or negative emotions to just really try to find a way to find an outlet, and ensure that you're acknowledging them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so once you did join the program, tell me a little bit about your experience. What was that like?
Yeah, I think this is something that we can, I think, talk for hours about. But honestly, it's been a really enlightening experience. And I feel like even saying that isn't doing it justice. And I think it starts honestly with you and like the truly like safe and supportive space that you've created with the program. Something as simple as like the reverence with which you speak about meditation and mindfulness in the lessons and the way that you encourage people to just show up as you are, during the meditations. I think that that's really reassuring. And then in terms of like the structure of the program, so as someone who has like a traditional 9 to 5, I think I really valued being able to like set my schedule or, figure out how I wanted to approach the program. Of course, within the 7 week period, but being able to say, okay, on Monday evenings or Sunday evenings, I'm gonna do the lessons. And then every morning I'm gonna wake up and do my 20, 30, 40 minute meditations. So I really enjoyed having that sort of flexibility within the program. I I would also say that it's been a long time since I've looked forward to having homework. And that's something that I kept telling myself week after week, like, wow, I'm really looking forward to my homework. And I think when it's your homework to meditate, I think that makes it a lot easier, you know? And I do think that the guided meditations were like the highlight for me because they helped me to gradually build up to longer and longer practices. And also allowed me to start applying, what I was learning in the lessons, whether that is like how to acknowledge that your thoughts are wandering, your mind is wandering, but being able to also bring it back, and not judging yourself, in the process, and also like how grounding it can be to just tune your senses to different parts of your body, doing something like the reason meditation, for example. I think I was able to learn so much. And like I said, we can talk about this for hours, but I think
Yeah.
those are the highlights for me for sure.
Yeah, I'm so glad to hear that
Yeah.
it was something that you looked forward to because it
Yeah.
is a time commitment to, watch these lessons, do your homework. But if it's something that you enjoy and you feel that it's like adding to your life, then hopefully it doesn't feel like a burden to do it every day.
Oh, I was just gonna say it didn't feel like a burden at all. And I think as the weeks went on, I got more and more excited because I could feel myself, getting better at it, and being able to really sit and spend that time with myself better.
Yeah. Can you tell me about that feeling? What
Yeah,
was that like?
yeah, I mean, this might sound cliche, but I honestly feel like every time I sat down, like I was taken somewhere else mentally. Like I was really just always checking in with myself. It was like I was spending time with myself. And I think that's something that I have always valued. And so to be able to find another way to do that was just felt really empowering for sure.
Mm, that's lovely. That's something that is so important, but it's so easy to deprioritize when you have like a busy life because you're like, you know, something has to go, and oftentimes, unfortunately, it ends up being ourselves. And so
Right. Yeah,
that's
I know.
what would you say was your biggest aha moment from your experience? Like, is there something that maybe clicked into place for you or that you will really take away from this experience?
Yeah, I think it goes back to something that I mentioned earlier, where I think people have this idea that meditation is this like one size fits all, and that there's a certain way that you have to do it. And while yes, we learn that there are different types of meditation, and there's maybe a better way to do one meditation than another, while that may be true, like I mentioned before, it doesn't stop after you've gotten up from the chair or wherever you were meditating. Like it continues throughout your day, throughout the weeks and months, and it's something that you can tap into anytime, and I think there's a freedom in realizing that, right? Like I don't have to sit here stewing about like the latest last minute project that I have. Like I can take 5 minutes, I can get up, I can take a walk, and that can be something that's meditative for me,
Mhm.
So I think that was one of my biggest aha moments, was realizing that again, it doesn't end once you get up from the chair. Like it's with you. It can be with you always.
Yeah, awesome. And I kind of following on that,
Mm,
one of the things that I stress is, taking our practice off of the cushion, off of the chair into our
mm.
everyday lives. Um, can you think of some like tangible ways that you've noticed it's kind of seeping into your life? Like, for example, when you get a last minute request or project, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
having the skills to sort of work through that stress and do what you need to do to like skillfully make a response rather than just like stewing like so many of us want to
Right,
do.
right, yeah. So I think, I think about the fact that for a long time I've been trying to practice the tenets of like Stoic philosophy. So one of my favorite books is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. I'd highly recommend to anyone, even if you're not into philosophy. But one of the principles of Stoic philosophy is that I'm sure you've heard this, is that while you don't have control over the things that happen to you, you can control how you react to them, right? Because everything at the end of the day comes down to your perception of a situation, right? And so I think while I maybe knew that in theory, I think my meditation practice has actually helped to strengthen that perception muscle, if you will. It's
Mm.
helping to be like less reactive when something happens, when there are those small inconveniences. And I think about so in the program we have these check-ins that we do either at the beginning of the week to say, what we're looking forward to, or at the end to say how the week went. And I remember one of my reflections being about like sitting in traffic, and it feeling like such an inconvenience. But then I think when you look at something like that, sitting in traffic, yes, you can find a way to do that, to acknowledge that you're frustrated and that you're annoyed. But you don't have to let that cause a reaction, a physical reaction, right? So where in the past I may have, gotten like red in the face or like started thinking, oh my gosh, why is this happening again? This is every day. I found myself just being more accepting and patient of whatever was happening. So thinking
Mm.
about the fact that, okay, I'm sitting in traffic, but I have the ability to drive. I'm driving home. I have a home to go to. Like, I have the ability to put on a podcast or some of my favorite music. And so I think being able to shift my perspective is something that this has really helped with. And then even in like everyday conversations, like let's say I'm in a group setting, talking to people. I think in the past, I've always like put pressure on myself to come up with like the perfect thing to say in a conversation, and always having that perfect
Yeah.
response, right? Whereas now I feel more comfortable taking the time to formulate what it is that I like to say. And maybe I don't, maybe there is nothing to say, and that's fine too. So I think those are some of the ways that it is sort of pleasantly seeped into, my everyday life.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are great examples.
Yeah.
And how does it feel? Like I'm sort of imagining as you were describing like these two scenarios, right? Driving home from
Yeah.
work or talking in a group setting. I'm almost imagining like a side by side comparison. Like one person is like driving home and they get mad at the traffic and they're like fuming and they're like in their head. The other person is like, oh, I'll put on a podcast and I'll, roll down the window or something. And then once you get home, like there's like a knock-on effect of like how your presence is at home and how you are with maybe the people who are at home or what
Right.
you do next. And um, same with the scenario where you're talking in a group setting is like the the feeling that pervades your life is different, I think.
Yeah, I do think so. And it comes back to just having this feeling of like acceptance, and just gratefulness and thankfulness for, being able to shift your perspective to what you have, and to also accept yourself for who you are. So like I was saying in that scenario where you're in a conversation and maybe you're the kind of person who you like to observe and you like to take things in before you form an opinion, that's fine. Like you don't always have to. And I think that's something that I've had to learn, being someone who is more introverted, it's being able to accept that I will speak when I feel that I have something that is meaningful enough to contribute. And so, yeah, I think it's that feeling is definitely one of acceptance. And yeah, it certainly helps you to feel like you are, again, you're grateful, you're thankful for what you have, and you have the ability to try again, even if you don't deal with the situation the way that you wanted to the first time. Like, you know, okay, I can do this again. I can try again.
That's really powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Um, okay, was there anything maybe that you weren't expecting, that pleasantly surprised you when you experienced it?
Mm. I would say I think at the beginning, I was afraid that I would not have like the attention span to stick to the longer meditations because, and I'm sure many people can relate to this. I think I'm unfortunately one of those people now who their attention span is so messed up because of the platforms that we use on a day-to-day basis. Like the amount of time that we spend on TikTok with that, you know, the bite-sized and entertainment that we're getting constantly. But what I found is that over time, there was less and less of that need for the mental stimulation. And again, it was like training a muscle, you know, and I think of course your guidance was a great help with that. And I have to say, I think it's a skill to be able to have like a guided meditation session over video, you know, and
Mhm.
even while I was doing my own meditations, like I heard your voice in my head. And so that was like super helpful for me, you know, and so the more and more I meditated, the less I felt the urge to like constantly distract myself, you know, and I found that I felt like I was repairing and mending my my attention span. So yeah,
Wow.
I'm really happy with how I was able to do that.
Did you, just out of curiosity, did you see any effects on like your focus at
Oh,
work?
absolutely. And I think because I always had it in my head, like once I realized that, you know, meditation just doesn't just end once you've gotten up from the chair. And once I realized that I had it as a tool with me all the time, it got easier and easier to tap into that. And it became more of like a default for me. You know, this is what when I'm faced with a challenge, that's the first thing I'm thinking of. Okay, how can I take a step back and just take a couple minutes for myself and then go back to what I was doing, you know? So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
definitely saw it made a huge difference.
Awesome. That is so powerful. Um, okay. So is there something like a piece of advice maybe that you would tell someone who is considering joining Become Club? Like
Mm.
there's probably somebody watching this who, they are currently where you were 7 weeks ago. Maybe they're curious about meditation, but they're like, I don't really know. I've tried it before. It didn't really work. What would you say to them?
Yeah, so I think even me when I started, I did have my reservations, one of which was again the time commitment, right? You know, as someone with a traditional job, you know, maybe you might think that you don't have enough time. And for someone like me, I have all these different interests. I sometimes feel like I don't have enough time to get to everything I want to. And so I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to make that time commitment. But I think for anyone who is also facing that same fear, I think you just really have to make the decision and stick to it. Like, especially if you know that like I said, you're someone like me who has dealt with, you know, stress or anxiety, and you want to find a way to take control of that. I think I would highly recommend this program. I have no regrets taking it. I think it's one of the best time investments that I've made in a long time. And I think even if you're someone who thinks that you have it all together, you know, you think you're mindful, you think you have everything together. I think when you think of it as something like exercise, you need to exercise in order to keep your body in shape. Similarly, if you want to maintain that state of that mental clarity, that feeling that you have everything together, you need some sort of practice to sustain that. And I think that that's where something like meditation and mindfulness can come in to help you stay grounded, to build on that self-awareness. And sometimes I think it can help you in ways that you may not even recognize in the moment, but then maybe weeks later you're doing something and you realize, hey, I find that I'm actually so much more focused right now. Well, that's actually because I've been spending 15, 20 minutes every day checking in with myself, taking time for myself. So I have absolutely no doubts that regardless of who you are, you can gain something from a program like this and from, just taking time for mindfulness.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I have so appreciated this conversation and hearing all about your experience and your insights. I think it has been truly an honor to be with you on this journey. I think I I just feel incredibly lucky. So, thank you so much.
Likewise. Thank you,
Thank
Amber.
I appreciate you. Awesome. Um, to anyone who is watching this right now and is feeling inspired by Greer's story, and you want to take the next step to learn how to feel really peaceful and present in your life, you can join us at meditationwithamber.com/become club. We would love to have you in our community. Awesome. Any last words, Greer?
Just don't think too hard about it. If this is something that even, sparks one bit of curiosity and you just take the decision, and I'm sure you won't regret it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right.
Thank
Talk soon, everyone.